Hello, welcome to Crushing Comics. My name is Peter, and I'm here with Shelve, Store, or Sell, where we do exactly one of those three things. We go through 140 short boxes, and we decide what of those three things is going to happen to the contents of them. Are going to be on my beautiful showcase collection shelves? Are they going to continue to be stored in these boxes? Or is it time to get rid of them because I'm never going to read them again, or I've duplicated them in other formats? We got through Astonishing X-Men through Cable in this box. This box is labeled Marvel Shelved A through E from my old house. These were the things that used to be on the shelf, and will they all wind up on the shelf here in this new house? So here we're up to date. And this hefty stack here, well, except for this one, is all Daken, I still don't know. So here's the story with Daken. We're gonna go with Daken. Here's the story with Daken. Oh boy, so Daniel Way's Wolverine origin ongoing filled in a lot of history for Wolverine because Wolverine was getting his memories back in the wake of House of M. That was the change he came out of House of M with. I actually enjoy it. I think we'd tread all of the ground there was to tread with Wolverine who doesn't remember stuff, and it was more interesting to have him remember stuff. In the course of remembering stuff, he realizes that he has had this offspring, Daken, who now has very similar powers to Wolverine, which means he's also a lot older than he looks, and he is not such a great guy. I found this incredibly intriguing because it added a new layer to Wolverine. We've seen him be a parental figure so many times, but usually to young women of a certain age, and usually the story is very much he either takes somebody under his wing who needs a wing to be sheltered by, or he takes somebody who's very rough around the edges and helps them learn to not be such an animal. And the dynamic with Daken was so different because he was rough around the edges, but he wasn't looking to change because you know what? Wolverine never has really truly changed either until, ironically, after Daken had been introduced. So I was like glued to Wolverine Origin. I remember, and we'll talk about it more when we get there, but I would just order the next thing to be like same day shipping from Amazon every time I finished a trade paperback and I was catching up on it because I wanted to read the next one. So I leapt into reading this Dark Wolverine series. It's by Marjorie Liu, who I almost always love, and Rob Williams, who I also almost always love. And Rob Williams does the best when he's working on people of questionable morality. So this Dark Wolverine series actually continued from Wolverine's own series. Basically, Jason Aaron was doing the Wolverine takeover at that point. He took over and with this new title, Wolverine Weapon X, and so the existing Wolverine title, when it hit issue 75, turned into Dark Wolverine, and Daken got his own ongoing. Not only cool because he was a brand new character who got his own ongoing, which was not something that happened a whole lot at that point in the late 2000s, but also because Daken is a bisexual character, and it was cool to see somebody who was bisexual and who absolutely was having relationships with people of all genders on the page, and who was also kind of a terrible person, get his own book. The unfortunate thing about that is over time, they have used Daken's bisexuality in a way that has become very tropey. In this very kind of bisexual people are very promiscuous, and also they're very usurious. They tend to use people and kind of flip from relationship to relationship, and then making that kind of part and parcel with his evil identity. Like he's evil because he's bisexual because he's evil, like, and making it hard to take those two things apart. So it turned from like really cool subversive representation on the page to like, okay, this is just kind of feeling like a nail that's getting hit over and over again in the same way with a hammer. But I would argue that this actual series that I have here in a few hardcovers, which is, he got his own series, Daken, Dark Wolverine, and it was launched by Liu and Williams. I would argue that it starts off good, and then Way takes over, Daniel Way. And even though Daniel Way was the one to create him, and I like Daniel Way a lot more than the average comic reader does, I just think it got like a little repetitive and tropey. And then he got put on the shelf, and he just turned into this kind of random villain. And when you're only a random villain and you show up, then you really lean into that trope aspect. So I'm really torn up about if I want to put that on the shelf. I love Daken as a character. I'm probably one of the people who loves him the most because I just think he's so different than anything else we got in X-Men or in comics in general. And I do kind of want to sit down and just reread it like now, really soon. But I just don't know if now's the time. So I think it's going to get stored for now. But but it's cool to see them, and it's something that I am interested in rereading independent if I do a full X-Men reread. So then I have one other book here, Colossus, God's Country. This is a recollection of a Colossus feature that ran in Marvel Comics Presents 10 through 17 that, in the late 80s. But this also, there used to be like a really slim old trade, I want to say, that had that. But this adds some additional Colossus stories, X-Men Origins Colossus, some classic X-Men stories, and then some stuff from X-Men Unlimited. I've never read all of it, actually, so I don't know, and I think getting into putting collections of individual X-Men individual stories on the shelf this early in the process feels a little bold. I think if we've only got about 19-ish spots, and maybe we're down to like 18 spots now, I don't want to necessarily do that. So next up, oh, we have more Dark Wolverine here. So actually it turns out there were 5 total volumes. And maybe I was wrong about Way taking it over, maybe Way started, I don't know. I don't have them in the right order, sorry. These are things that surprised me in the boxes because they just got thrown into these bags like as quickly as I could get them off the shelves because we're getting ready to move to New Zealand. But also in here is District X and House of M Mutopia X, which were Bishop's ongoing series in that new X-Men period where he was like a mutant detective and it was running at the same time as Grant Morrison's new X-Men. I don't really care. I've actually never read them, so maybe I would care. This is one of those times that I wish I had somebody who had read everything X-Men on here to be like, Peter, shut up. But it's not going on the shelf because it's not a high priority for me. I know it's in my complete X-Men collection. And then finally, we have Excalibur Classic 1 through 5 and one of the Excalibur original graphic novels, Heir Apparent. Now, Excalibur is my favorite superhero series of all time. I have it fully in floppies, every single issue, and I have these classic collections, and there was a brief gap at the end of these classic collections when both Chris Claremont and Alan Davis left the title in the mid-30s of the title, and then Alan Davis comes back and takes over early in the 40s and then runs for over another 20 issues. And that was collected in Alan Davis Visionaries, which will be, I'm sure, at the beginning of the next box of Shelved, which won't be the next episode, I'll just pick it when I pick it. So these classic collections represent like a really amazing early period of Excalibur, and they do a great job of not skipping things, if I'm correct, because there were a couple of fill-in issues, and they didn't do the awful thing of just skipping over the fill-ins, which always pisses me off, but they didn't necessarily comprehensively collect all of Excalibur's side appearances or all of these original graphic novels, which were part of the Excalibur story. They were in place of annuals. Wolverine got them too, Punisher got them. I don't know why Excalibur got to join that club. And so now that they're releasing Excalibur Epic Collections, over the course of 3 Epic Collections, we have covered all 5 of these classic collections, and they collected all that other stuff. So these are kind of out of date now. Does that mean I'm going to sell them? A, I don't know if there's a market, honestly, for them because they've been superseded. B, I have a lot of affection for this run. And C, they would be a good format for me to give to the kid to read since they're not so precious to me anymore. So I think they're actually just gonna go back to get stored. I know some of you are like, Peter, you have all these comics, why do you insist on having them in multiple formats? But I sometimes have different plans for different formats, right? The oversized shelf is like my prestige shelf. It's what I want to do when I sit down when I do a long read. My floppy shelf is the shelf for quick hits, research, sharing with my kid, lending to people, and then sometimes I have duplicates just for sentimental reasons. So this kind of falls somewhere in the middle of that. I do think eventually I'll downsize them out, but I'm not really ready to say goodbye quite yet, and I think that's indicative of the fact that I don't really have a good plan for what to do with stuff that got duplicated by epics. You're gonna see this a lot because a lot of these epics were not lines I was actively collecting, but I might have incidentally bought something that they now cover, or in the case of the X-Men ones, like the X-Force epic, they absolutely cover things that I was already collecting. And you're gonna find that I have some of those things in 4 or 5 formats now, and hopefully we're gonna hold my feet to the fire a little bit more in the future, and I can think of some of them that I definitely will be interested in selling, but unfortunately I love Excalibur too much and I cannot say goodbye. So, upshot of that box is I think we just got through a whole episode where I didn't pick anything to shelve. That is pretty cool. But I didn't pick anything to sell either. So from the whole box, from last episode and this episode, the only thing we're shelving is the prestige portions of Astonishing X-Men, because I think that's really cool, and I wish it was all oversized. I would buy it all in oversized if it existed. But everything else is going back in the box, so good defense, good D. And we're gonna be back next time with more stuff. And probably a box that I will not have read as thoroughly as this box. Other than the Colossus stuff and the District X stuff, I've read everything in this box, some of it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So this represents kind of a high tide point, and I probably could have talked more about what I love so much about Excalibur, but I know because I own it in multiple editions, there's gonna be other opportunities. So thanks so much for watching. This is, what is it called? Shelve, Store, or Sell. I'm your host, Peter, and we have so many more of these boxes to get through, so if you have ideas, requests, anything you want to tell me, let me know, because we've got plenty of time to figure all of that out. Thanks so much for watching Crushing Comics.